and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Only Friends podcast. We have a spicy one for you all today. As always, I'm joined by the one and only, the Tortoise, Brian, Lamanna. He's here. Mm-hmm. He's ready to ask all the hard-hitting questions.
Dude, honestly, I got to give you props like right off the bat because I'm serious. Like you really have been like
who's going to carry the boats?
I'm just saying he's been going through all the information. He's up all night, literally like looking at every single detail just to break this entire Steelers-Ravens game down for you guys. It's gonna be a long one, so buckle up.
That's right. We got Mason back dropping through. No, honestly, like he's not entirely wrong. I've been grinding. I've been grinding this info for days. So much of it's in Russian or some other language I can't really follow.
There's a lot of Steeler fans in Russia.
You know what? There's a Steeler bar there somewhere for sure. Putin's a fan. We obviously have a big show today, talking ACR bot ring. We'll bring back up the GG hacking situation that occurred a couple days ago. We have a lot to cover. We have it in the muck towards the end of the show that I hope you guys will stick around for. Guapo, thank you so much for joining us today. You have a big day ahead of you, buddy.
Yes, many things to discuss. Why can't everybody just play by the rules?
That's not how the
it's
world
not that
works,
hard,
man.
Guys. I mean, there's incentive. I get it, but
it's
sad. It's a good time to transition. It's a good time to transition to live poker.
Live poker's popping, man.
I think my online poker days are officially, if they weren't officially over like 3 or 4 months ago,
it's getting close.
Definitely over now.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Guapo? It's funny you should mention that because as you're transitioning into the live world, who better to come to for a little advice than your friends here at Solve for Why?
That's right.
And it just so happens that we have an academy coming up next week, January 15th to the 17th. There's still a few seats remaining, so if you guys want to get a hold of that, head over to academy.solveforwhy.io. Let's just get the plugs out of the way. Do you have the video for this or no?
I believe I do.
All right, let's just roll the clip. Awkward silence.
Look at that clip. That
is we'll keep it going. I mean, you could just said you didn't have the clip.
Yeah, the clip. I got it. Hey, we're fast here. It's a fast tortoise.
For what it's worth, this is going to be what most of today's like. I think he has somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 assets.
A lot. It really is a lot.
Most of it is on his shoulders. All right, so this is the last chance to sign up. I think we have 4 or 3 seats remaining, so be sure to head over to academy.solveforwhy.io if you're interested, or you can hit hashtag Academy in the chat. It'll give you the link. Let's get right to it.
Do it.
We got a lot going on. Okay, so this story, I guess, started to leak 2 days ago. What was today? Friday, so Wednesday. And we had our hands full coming back. We wanted to discuss the GG hacking situation as well as like their response to all of that. And I know we were a little bit late on that. And we kind of alluded to this over the last 2 days that, when Patrick put his message out yesterday, kind of calling out all ambassadors, and suggesting, you know, they could do better to communicate with the community, and we need to do better as a community to hold these sites accountable for our safety, for our security, for refunding money that's being stolen from us. We were kind of insinuating, like, who exactly is he talking about? And we kicked around like, well, maybe this is a little bit of a shot at Negreanu. And then I kind of mentioned like, well, maybe this is a little bit targeted towards ACR, knowing that this information was kind of out there because I was in, you know, a group chat with Tyler, the original poster on 2+2, and he was making me aware of what was going on and how long this has been going on for. It's a lot, guys. I mean, we are only going to scratch the surface today. My goal here is to basically just lay out what public information there is, give you a little bit of context based off of my conversations with Tyler and some other sharp people behind the scenes. And then, you know, just discuss ACR's response thus far, what we think can happen moving forward, and, you know, give you guys as much information as possible to chew on over the weekend, because this isn't going to go away in the next 24 hours. It's not going to go away in the next 72 hours. And to double down on this, because this isn't my specialty, like, I'm not in the online arena. I've never claimed to be, but I know that I am a bit of a naysayer who's been beating the drum of online is dying. And it's dying because of the lack of security, because of, you know, how challenging it is to overcome rake, collusion, RTAs, bots. All of these things are cutting into win rates, and it's just making it very unsustainable moving forward. So I've been the naysayer. I've been the guy beating the drum saying, like, just move to live. But I also understand that that's my lens. I don't play online, so I'm not looking for a way to save online necessarily. I am an insider in the industry, and I do recognize that online is a very important lifeline for this industry to grow. So I don't want to be the person who says burn it all to the ground. I just kind of want to be the guy who's warning everyone that this shit is kind of happening. So instead of me sitting on my soapbox and proclaiming that live is the best and online's the worst, I'd rather bring in some experts who are in the arena that can speak to how they battle against this stuff on the daily and what they believe the path moving forward will be. So sometime next week, I'm shooting for midweek to give us enough time to prep. I'd like to bring in a panel of a mixed bag of sorts, people who are playing online, you know, industry leaders like Pads. He's already confirmed that he's going to be on. I'm going to reach out to Patrick and Marinelli and a few others that are out there battling in the streets. Also hopeful to get somebody from the security side or the operational side to come in and kind of give their perspective of how they're working hard against this stuff. As well as like some programmers. We're working on getting in touch with the lead at Range Trainer Pro, who actually, I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but was actually able to meet Moneymaker's challenge in less than 12 hours.
Wow.
So that's Matt McElligott. Let's hope that's correct. McElligott. Okay. Yeah. He's the lead dev at Range Trainer Pro. So for those of you who are not familiar, that is affiliated to Learn Pro Poker, who is run by Ryan LaPlante, and I believe that the head of Range Trainer Pro is KL. So those guys are, you know, they're over there doing great work. He's the lead dev. He built a bot apparently in minutes. I quote tweeted this and I said it only took 12 hours. And
is
Ryan,
he 100K richer?
So I guess they're working on it. He reached out to Moneymaker. Moneymaker confirmed he was the first to have one up and running. And I guess now they're hashing out the details to prove that it's undetectable or whatever. But the context was Ryan responded to me and he said it actually only took him 20 minutes. He was sleeping for most of the 12 hours. He just like woke up this morning and said, oh, I can do this. And it makes sense because, you know, he already has between Range Trainer Pro and Learn Pro Poker, they have all of the database already built. You know what I mean? It would be like if somebody at GTO Wizard decided they wanted to employ a bot. Right. It wouldn't take much, right? They already have the entire database at their fingertips. So now it's just a matter of building out the code and having it functionally, you know, click buttons for you or whatever the case may be. So to give you guys further context, because I know I'm kind of jumping around here, we're kind of cutting right to the response. portion of this. And I think that that's actually an okay place to start before we lay out what the entire problem is, because the problem is very convoluted. There's a lot of threads to pull at, and I don't want to miss the mark on what matters most to us as the community, right? It's not so much about knowing precisely how we're being cheated. It's more about knowing what prevention is taking place moving forward and what type of messaging these operators are sending our way. Now, there's a few things I want to touch on before we fully, I guess, like dive in. But when it comes to the response, so there are a couple threads to pull out here. First is the video that Pads put out yesterday, I believe, as well as the response video that Dankness put out, kind of further calling the content creators into questions. It's really important to understand that we need to hold someone's feet to the fire. And the issue is that these people who represent the sites are our only go-between. So we do kind of need some sort of messaging, even if it's like bullshit marketing that, you know, quells the community for a time, where their rep is on the line, right? Like, if they choose to represent these sites and get paid a healthy sum to do so, they're willingly saying, you can use my likeness any way you see fit, and if that means that I have to go to bat for you, like, so be it, right? So I understand where Pads and Dankness are coming from, basically asking these people to do more with communicating to the community at large. I also understand someone like All In Pav, who's like, I'm just a streamer for GG, bro. Like, I have no pull. I'm not Jason Kuhn. I'm not Daniel Negreanu. I don't have that kind of connection. And it's kind of like, what do you do? Where do you hold their feet to the fire? Because to me, this is similar to, like, you know, you being an Instagram influencer and putting some product in one of your stories or one of your posts, and then you find out later that that product is built in a sweatshop. It's like, well, you know, what do you want me to do, man? Like, I got to pay my bills too.
Yeah.
I've gone mute. So it is kind of one of those things where it's like, I understand the desire to want more. I also understand the desire for those guys to want to stay silent, right? Like, they got paid and nobody's asking them to speak. Now, I bring all of this up because I think everybody was very disappointed in the response from the ambassadors of GG, right? We got really no communication. And though I think that they did a fairly good job from the PR standpoint, there is that big gap of, we don't know what would have happened if the community didn't suss this out, right? I think the reason why I let them off a little bit easier is because they do have that sort of structure in place where nobody can win too much without getting kicked off the site. And that gives me some confidence that there aren't hundreds of these hackers who were able to take advantage of the thumbs up, thumbs down thing. Or if they were only able to do it for a small amount of money before getting kicked off for winning too much, right?
There's some sort of fail-safe.
Yeah, to some degree. Now, does that make it okay with the way that they approach the whole thing? Not necessarily. And would we like to see more messaging? Absolutely. Like, we want follow-up to this. Would love to hear from the ambassadors, of course. And we want them, more importantly, a guy like Daniel, or maybe less so Jason, because he's not so much in the public eye. We want them to increase our community's trust again, like, earn it back, you know, because you guys had no problem selling us the product. And that's where Pads' criticism comes from, and I recognize it and understand it. It's very reasonable. You had no problem selling us the product. Now, when the product's damaged, you kind of wash your hands of it and say, like, hey, that's not me, man. Talk to the higher ups. And we don't have access to the higher ups necessarily, right? So I get where the frustration's coming from, and I think it's very valid. And I share in it to some degree. I think that the other thing that we're kind of wondering about is, like, where is the Integrity Council that was put together during the Ali and Jake thing? Like, was that just something to kind of, you know, pass us through this tough time where, you know, a known cheater or a known cheating ring was kind of sussed out, and we're never getting the millions back that they took? But at least now this integrity council was put together to ensure that moving forward, we won't have to deal with something like this. Well, it's like, here we are.
Yeah.
You know?
I think in order to use the Integrity Council, don't we have to have someone's feet to kind of hold to the fire? Or are we talking about the Integrity Council holding the actual operators accountable?
Well, the Integrity Council was put together by GG, so it's difficult for them to hold the operator accountable. But like Pad spoke about his contract with Party, I believe. And he basically said, I was known as Annoying Patrick. Because anything that was going to be negative to the community at large, he would push back on. And he said he had it written into his contract that, like, if ever there was a protest against Party, he would align with the players. And I think that is incredibly sharp.
Yeah.
Right? He said that he passed on a lot of other lucrative opportunities because they wouldn't give him that language in his contract.
Yeah, it sounds like he shot himself in the foot.
Well,
no,
we do it all the time.
Yeah, financially he did, but
That's what I'm
not
saying, yeah.
ethically, right? Like he wanted to have the free reins to support what's right and be with the people, which that's kind
I
of what
think
he
that's
was
very
saying.
noble.
Yeah,
And I
that's
think,
what he was saying in his
and I think
video.
we should expect that a little bit more from these ambassadors. So when it comes to the Integrity Council, I mean, I think personally what it is that we need them to kind of play middleman, both hold the operators to a slightly higher standard and force their hand to kind of, react and respond. And then at the same token, represent us, right? Now it's difficult, obviously, because if GG creates the Integrity Council, then you assume that the Integrity Council needs to be loyal to them. But listen, I've spoken to the people that are like pretty high up in almost every single company, with the exception of ACR. And even at ACR, like there's plenty of people that we all know pretty well that are tapped in, right? All of them have growth in mind. All of them are trying to take strides in order to ensure that their product doesn't disappear. They all recognize that online is in trouble in some capacity. And as a byproduct, poker may be in some sort of trouble, right? Because we don't necessarily know if live will flourish without the existence of online. The entire boom online has been one of the driving navigators, right? So we don't know what happens if that disappears. So I want it to be clear that, like, we villainize all of these corporations because they're billion-dollar industries and they're raking us to death, and they don't seem to give a shit. And maybe that's true sometimes, but I don't think it's always true. So I guess I'm basically painting this picture because I do think the Integrity Council would be a helpful force here. We're just disappointed we're not hearing from them.
So when you paint that picture, it sounds like there isn't a lot of incentive for like the big three to really do anything. Like I think it was 5 or 6 months ago when Caesar's Palace and MGM was attacked. We saw what kind of impact that had on them financially, right?
Right.
Would it be asking too much, or am I thinking too, I don't want to say utopian, but if they actually took the accountability, let's say Nagy just says, okay, you know what? We're going to shut things down for 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Does he lose a lot of market share? And will he get that back when they're up and running and says, hey, you know what? We've made significant changes to our security. We made significant changes on how we detect bots. Is there incentive?
It's difficult. It's difficult, and it's above my pay grade. I think that we could talk about potential solutions down the line because I'm kind of in line with you and the way that you're thinking. The difficulty is, like, yes, you're going to lose short-term market share. Will you regain it through consumer confidence in the long run? Perhaps, but you have to have a pretty strong go-to-market strategy.
Well, speaking of strong, I mean, that's a strong sales point. If you can say, hey, look, we shut things down and there is no place safer to play online than our site, I feel like that's a pretty strong pitch.
It is a strong pitch, but we as consumers,
how do we know the truth of it?
We as consumers are at the show me or blow me stage.
Yeah.
Like we're not
Nice,
taking
right?
anyone's word for it at this point. So I bring
that's a Pittsburgh phrase, isn't it? I think I've heard that in a few underground games in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's shout out to Oaken. That's his favorite showdown phrase. So I bring all of this up because the response from the ambassadors of ACR was very different than GG's. They came out with a united front, and maybe their messaging wasn't all consistent, but it was very pro ACR, right? DePaulo immediately came out and said, all we have is a list of winners. And that doesn't prove anything that these guys are botting. Like, you guys could just be framing a bunch of people, which, love you, DePaulo, but like, you know, do your homework a little bit more. Obviously, this isn't just like some thread that popped off a few days ago and suddenly took light. Like, we're going to demonstrate these threads go all the way back to 2019.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this guy Tyler is an industry insider. He doesn't want, like, you know, his information revealed or anything like that, but he is very much in the know and very much in a position to suss out these bot rings and help the security of whoever would be interested in listening to him. So, you know, DePaulo basically comes out and says, like, we don't know shit. Like, these guys could all just be winning players. You guys are jumping to conclusions, yada, yada, yada. Initially, I think Rob Kuhn kind of mirrored that messaging. And then maybe, in my opinion, one of, you know what? It's not even the worst PR move ACR had this month, based off of Nagy's response to a Sunday shutdown was to do a "'Twas Their Night Before Christmas" parody of them getting the site up and running again. And honestly, like, it's remarkable how fucking bad we are in this community at just like simple business tactics, marketing, you know, ethics, whatever. All of it is like, it's so abundantly clear that nobody with an MBA in this industry at all is in a position to do shit, which is wild, man. It's just wild. Like, how is this entire industry bootstrapped by just a bunch of guys who want to start a company? Like, if you know how there's that whole meme of like when something, when like global politics pops off or COVID or whatever, everybody in poker becomes an expert. I feel like that's how we've built all of our businesses in poker. Like, guys who were just competent at the game decided that they're a fucking expert in something else, and now all of a sudden, you know, they're popping up an online poker site or whatever the case may be. I digress. So the second worst response in this month, I guess, by ACR was Moneymaker and Ebony deciding to take to the airwaves and issue a public challenge. That public challenge was Moneymaker saying, I'll give $100,000 if you can prove that you can bot ACR. I believe our security team is so strong that nobody will be able to productively bot without getting caught.
Right.
So 5,000 hands of botting. I don't care if you program a losing bot. As long as you're able to play for 5,000 hands, I'll give you $100,000.
Wow.
My response to this was twofold. Okay, first of all, this is a terrible idea for two reasons. The number one reason why this is a bad idea is because you're now subjecting the rest of your player pool to a bunch of people who are botting, attempting to win this prize.
Yeah.
And if they're competent at this at all, they're not going to program a losing bot. They're going to program a break-even bot or a slightly winning bot or, you know, something like that that adds a little bit of win rate on top, right? Because it's all about just the strategy that you employ. You know, it's not easier to create. Matter of fact, it's probably harder to create a losing bot than it would be to just take a single size strategy from like something like a wizard database, and then turn it into a bot, right? So first and foremost, you're just asking the site to be infiltrated with like a new set of bots that are free rolling.
Right. It's kind of like a bank being like, I bet you can't break into our vault. Go ahead and try. If you get in, we'll give you $100,000 on top of it. I mean, it's just going to like incentivize people to.
Well, I mean, at least at the bank level, you don't mind white hat hackers because it does stress test your security.
Right.
And you expect it to come. And you also, but yeah, you're right. Then you have like the nefarious people who, they don't care about the reward. If they can get in and steal from you, they just do, and then they make off with it because it's a free roll.
Yeah.
Right. The reason why this doesn't fall into the white hat hacker group, in my opinion, is because if these bots do exist as are suggested through the 2+2 thread, etc., they've been going undetected for quite some time. And it seems as though they basically recycle every 3 months or so. That was what was implied in the 2+2 thread, is that there's a new wave. So like you can't just have like a single methodology in dealing with bots, right? Like, oh, we stopped screen scraping, and anybody who tries to screen scrape will get eliminated or detected as a botter, right?
And screen scraping is
It's whenever you run an algorithm to pull the pertinent information off of the screen in order to allow the machine to understand what's happening. So it's like, yeah, maybe that's one methodology of prevention, but it's going to be clear pretty quickly to the botters that like, okay, that's the next challenge that we have to overcome. So like every few months or so, they're going to evolve. And that's always going to be the case, right? And it's never going to be on the poker sense. It's always going to be on the tech side. Because again, they don't need to have a very sophisticated strategy. They don't need to be winning 10 to 20 big blinds per 100. They just need to be profitable. If you can win a half a big blind per 100 and just employ these things 24/7, let it run,
Right.
Good.
you just print,
Especially when you have so many of
Multiple.
Correct.
them. Right.
Correct. Shout out to Weston for hitting us with a super chat. We appreciate you. He said, I made a working ACR bot from scratch in about 5 hours.
Wow.
And that makes a ton of sense, right? So anyway, getting back to what I was saying, the other reason why this is really bad outside of just, fulfilling or fully subjecting your users to now bots is that catching somebody building a non-sophisticated bot, like basically if the challenge succeeds for Moneymaker side and nobody can do it, it just means that nobody was incentivized to build something sophisticated enough to capture $100,000 when they could just capture millions.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is if these bots are in existence and they've been in existence for a long period of time, the sophistication that they've iterated up to, they might be on like bot team version 12.0, in which case like each one is going to be more sophisticated than the last. To reach that level of sophistication is going to take some period of time, testing, and all this other methodology. And once you get there, you're just taking millions out of the prize pool or out of the player pool. If you're taking millions, you're not going to turn yourself in for 100K.
Right.
So these non-sophisticated versions getting flagged by security and demonstrating that like they don't have a bot problem is not the same, right? So if he was correct and no one could build the bot, it just means that nobody was really incentivized to break security down, right?
Yeah.
They weren't dealing with the level of sophistication of what may already be out there. So these two things don't cancel each other out. And secondarily, if somebody can break the security with a simple bot, that also doesn't necessarily prove or disprove that this bot ring is or is not in existence. So the challenge, in my opinion, it's just a very mediocre stress test of whether or not the security can handle capturing bots in real time. And it looks as though the answer is no. So it seems as though there's a bunch of people who were able to build bots in a very short period of time, Matt being the first to employ it. And from all accounts of what we're seeing on Twitter, they beat the challenge.
Doesn't they have to play 5,000 hands?
Correct.
And not get caught. So like that probably hasn't happened yet.
5,000 hands of their multi-tabling would take no time.
Especially with many.
Okay, you're talking you're talking hours.
Well, if they're 10 tabling, you could do it in 5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
If they're playing
Or-
Blitz.
sorry.
If they're
That's
playing
not true.
Blitz, it's going to go look quicker too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. So 100 hands per table. If you're playing 10 tables, that's 1,000 hands an hour. So
5 hours.
yeah, you're looking at 5 hours. Yeah, I was right.
Yeah. Well, each table you can do 100 hands in an hour.
Roughly, yeah.
Right.
Maybe it needs to be blitz. Whatever.
Okay.
Under 10 hours for
Right.
sure.
Within 1 day,
You
can
should
do
be
it.
able to prove it. And
Right.
from what I'm, reading in the threads, like it seems as though like that process has already began, or it doesn't matter. It truly doesn't matter. This is just a really bad response from the ambassadors. This is not what, and I love Chris. I think Chris's heart was absolutely in the right place.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, to his defense, it seems like he's been fed false information, right?
Correct.
Right. It's
Security's
just
telling him like
right, they're
nobody
telling
can
him,
buy.
yeah, they're like
It might
nobody
not
could
be-
ever do
it
this.
might not
So
be
go out
false.
and tell them that
It might not be false information. It just could be bad.
bad information, whatever.
Or
Yeah,
naive.
He was
Right,
misled.
right.
Is
Yeah.
basically.
Right. I mean, the information he was given was not correct.
Correct.
Is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And look, I love Chris. I think his heart is in the right place. I think he was trying to actually honor Pads' video and say like, okay, well, this is our opportunity. Like,
Yeah.
Shit's going down and everybody's disappointed with GG's response. So let's be the site that gets in front of this. Let's just take it head on. And I admire that because I think that is the right approach. But this isn't it. You know, this isn't the proper way to go about it.
Right, because you're not saying come cheat. You're not saying come cheat ACR. You're saying come cheat our player pool.
Essentially, like, are they going to refund? Like, if you have a winning bot over 5,000 hands, are they going to refund that money to everybody that lost?
Right.
It's not the company that's at risk. It's your player pool. It's the people that support you.
Right. And to talk about the white hacking stuff, Jason brought up what is probably like the common response to this to defend Moneymaker, and I think it's a reasonable one, but it's just it's a shallow thought, basically. He said, how is this different than if somebody found a vulnerability in JP Morgan and has the option to either report it for 100,000 or use it to line their pockets illicitly? The only real difference I see is that the legal consequences if you steal from JP Morgan is much greater than stealing from ACR. My response to that, and I think that this is a really big point to get home and why I think this was such poor form from Moneymaker, is the difference is in this instance, we haven't publicly uncovered how they're vulnerable. We don't know the security, right? We just know that they are vulnerable, right? So it's not the same as like knowing how JP Morgan is vulnerable and having the golden goose in one hand or the moral truth in the other with the ability to get rewarded maybe 1/100th of the amount, right? Like I could just be a scumbag and take 100 million from JP Morgan, or I could take the ethical route and take 100,000 and help them patch their product. Who knows which way that goes? But the reason why this is different is because we, the public that are being asked to create these bots, don't know how they're vulnerable. We just know that they're probably susceptible to bots. So in this instance, the better analogy would be to, if a challenge was issued to the public, to reward proof of insider trading in the stock market, right? And the way that you demonstrate that is proving that you made a successful purchase through insider information. Anybody who has the insider information is just going to fucking buy the stock. They're not going to demonstrate that. Like, we all know insider trading exists, and we just don't have access to the information.
Right.
Much like in this case, we don't have access to the leak in the security. We're just all pretty confident that it's there. So this doesn't actually stress test the thing that it needs to stress test, which is where the security breaks down at a sophisticated level.
Right.
Right? All it's going to stress test is if the security breaks down at a non-sophisticated level. And it seems as though that might be true as well. We're not really sure.
Sounds like poker needs their own SEC. Is that what it's called?
Security Exchange Commission?
Yeah. I mean, regulation would be nice. I feel like we don't. That's interesting. We don't really
Are they willing to open up the books for like an independent?
Well, yeah, but I don't know that. Well, okay. I mean, that will get all the way into like the KYC stuff, and maybe that's exactly what makes
know your customer.
Yeah, I think that might be the layer that makes like regulated sites like WSOP much safer. Like, we don't concern ourselves with bots on WSOP.
Right.
And because they fall underneath Nevada Gaming.
Correct. And by being under Nevada Gaming, they have to follow strict KYC policy. Yeah. You cash a tournament for 5K, you get a W-2.
Right.
You know,
when you sign up, you have to like send them a picture, your driver's license, everything. all the bells and whistles of KYC. Yeah.
Right. Everything. So I think that that's probably a really valid step in the right direction for a solution. The issue is there isn't very much soft money on WSOP.
What does that mean?
Well, there isn't a bunch of whales.
Guapo's still playing.
Sure.
Oh, fuck you. That's such a low blow.
But
no, you aren't playing. That's all right.
But the you know, when you're looking at like something like ACR, this is Bitcoin fueled, right? So the money can come from anywhere. You don't. Same thing with GG. Less so with Party and PokerStars, I believe. So because Party and PokerStars are in regulated markets in the United States, I think that they're much stronger with their KYCs. Whereas like GG, I believe ACR, and then I'm not sure about the other things or the other working sites like Ignition, etc. I think that they don't really operate much with KYC because they're mostly operating in crypto, in agents. You know, there's a lot of layers between the actual operator and the consumer when it comes to the payouts. There's a lot of peer-to-peer transfers. There's a million ways to like move money and stuff. So by not knowing your customer, I think that they get themselves in a situation where now these accounts, because a big part of the bot farming is the ability to make thousands of accounts.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And they don't necessarily need to be tied to an actual human being.
I don't know if they do or don't, but it seems as though it's not.
A lot of times it's just an email address or something.
That's
like
what I'm
that.
saying.
Right.
There's no identification. There's no like.
Yeah.
Even if there is, it seems as though
could just
like
make it up.
their due diligence isn't that high. So
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
you could just create,
It's not to the standard
Mike
of,
Jones.
of what KYC brings.
correct. Yeah. I think that I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I think that is probably a big aspect of what is generating this problem so regularly.
Right, because if you make it harder to actually get your money without proper documentation, then yeah. I could see
But
that.
as poker players, that doesn't really it's a catch-22. We like the fact
Anonymity.
that what?
Anonymity?
To some degree, but more specifically anonymity around money. Right? Like we like the fact that we're able to just like transfer to one another. We like the fact that we can do peer-to-peer stuff, that we can just fire a Bitcoin.
Yeah, we want it to be convenient.
It's really fucking hard to get money on party poker. Right? Like it's partly from my understanding like why a lot of the high stakes stuff died, because the way that their payment processors are set up, like I think they really limit even the highest buy-in players to small amounts. I remember I'm not sure about this. We can double check when he's on next week, but I think I remember Pad saying that like he would have to like bankroll manage on party to the point where like he wouldn't play his normal ABI if his account was starting to dip, because he'd have to win something
and
before.
he knew he couldn't get the money on.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
Like, you're limited to a couple $1,000s here and there. WSOP is a lot better about this, but even still, outside of going to the cage and handing them bricks, it's kind of tough to get like large sums on WSOP.
Yeah.
During COVID, whenever it was really popping off and like there was 100, 200 frequently going, it was hard. It was hard to get like 100,000 on there because you'd have daily limits, weekly limits, all this other stuff. And, it's all big picture good for the security of the game. But as a player, it's a frustrating thing to have to deal with. Now, at least WSOP, we do have the ability to go deposit live. That's not going to be, it's not really the case with the other ones as far as I know. But it may be a direction that we can consider things taking in the future. Shout out to Steven Northrup, hit us with a super chat. He said, I'm banned on ACR, but I use black chip with no problems. That's another aspect, right? We talk about, the
Black chip? What's black chip?
it's just the
It's
skin.
a different skin, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So we talk a lot about like the communication between actual sites themselves and how it would be nice to see some cooperation in getting a black book and having, people banned. They're not even doing it necessarily within their own skins. If you can get banned from one and then just open another skin, like that just demonstrates how easy it is to continually create and recycle new accounts, right? Let's get into the allegations a little bit from the 2+2 poster, Tyler RM. I know we've talked a fair amount already without really laying it all out, but I just want to kind of discuss what he posted and why we should have some concern here. As well as like a few threads that we can maybe tug at as a community at a whole to try to get to some answers. So the original post went up January 3rd, 2024. And he basically said, I've been monitoring the development and profitability of poker bots. Monitoring and developing the development and profitability of poker bots has become an increasingly challenging task. Below are my findings related to the bots identified on WPN Winning Poker Network. And he puts a graph up that is basically straight up 0 to 10 million. So this is essentially a collection of screen names that he lists below. I think I don't remember how many screen names it is in total.
Is this Jeremy?
Jeremy?
Who put this up?
Tyler.
Tyler RM. So I'm not sure exactly how many screen names there are. It looks like there's probably well over 100 in each grouping. He has two groups, an MTT nicknames part 1, MTT nicknames part 2, and then the cash nicknames, which are far fewer. It looks like that's only about 30 to 40-ish suspected bots. And then, he includes some graphs in the thread as well. Sorry, he included some responses in the thread, and then he sent me some of these graphs. So this is what the hand to note output looked like. For those of you guys wondering where this came from, he also attached a file that has all of the MTT cash hands, or sorry, all the MTT hands and all the cash hands as well. And a few sharp people that are really good with data ran it through hand to note. This is what they came up with. So this is the MTT group 1. You can see that they're winning about 10 big blinds per 100. They pulled around 200,000 in profit. This is MTT group 2, pulled about 300,000 in profit, winning. Oh, sorry, that's 300,000 big blinds. My apologies. So I don't know what that converts to.
A lot more.
It's a lot more money. Well, I guess we do know what it converts to because of the thread. It's going to roughly be 10 million when it's all said and done. And then you can see the cash game bots. They're making about 2.5 big blinds per 100.
It's a nice red line.
Really nice red line. And that's it's really great you pointed that out, Guapo. And you can go back to the MTT bots as well, or graph really quickly. I just want to see. Okay. Is the red line negative on both of them? Go back one more.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's almost flat on the first.
Okay, so it's almost flat on the
actually
first.
going up.
But in the cash one, this is a really critical thing to look at. This is one of the most inhuman graphs that you'll see, in the sense that it's very hard, if not downright
Your
impossible.
red line's higher than your blue line?
No, to have them both be positive.
Oh, right.
It's so, and this is what we saw with the user on GG, the hacker. His red line and blue line were both positive, which led us to believe he must have some sort of clairvoyance in order to do so, because what it indicates is that you are
all your bluffs get through and all your value gets paid off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is
At
this
showdown,
at a certain
you have
stake,
value.
Matt?
I don't know. It just says 400 plus.
Because I know it's smaller stakes.
So it looks like
it's much easier to have a positive red line, but I think
it's not about having a positive red line. It's about having both of them be in the positive together. It's easy to have a positive red line, but your blue line suffers traumatically, right? Like, it's very easy to have a positive red line. You're just finding nodes where people fold too often.
Right.
But if people are folding too often, that means when you have value, they're also folding too often.
You don't
Right.
get
So
value.
your blue line plummets. There should be a very large gap between the two if you're a red liner, so to speak. Right. It's very difficult to do what we see there. Like, yeah, this is very reasonable. Seeing like that massive gap between blue line and red line, that is very attainable. Well, I mean, having a blue line that high is insane.
Yeah.
This looks more like one of my graphs.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you know, this is somewhat indicative of like the sophistication of the bot, which somebody, MTT Database Review put out a tweet today that basically clarifies. And I think that this is important to understand because I think it's very relevant. It also applies to the cash game bot. They're not that sophisticated, right? And I've kind of mentioned this a bunch. They don't need to have world-class strategy here, right? That's not the goal. The aim is just to have win rate. As long as you have win rate and perhaps even rakeback. I don't know if they're that blazing, or brazen rather. But you know, if they are, you know, they're just
collecting so much rakeback just
for sure.
All that just play,
just so much.
They have
play.
those things running 24 hours a day. Yeah.
So he basically said, I want to clear up a few things about the ACR bots that I've looked through, those MTT nicknames from the 2+2 thread. This is not any sort of sophisticated play. It's not using GTO Wizard or anything along those lines. Those players are playing extremely weird, unique strategies, and I've seen a lot of different play styles in my coaching career with weird frequencies, weird sizings, and surprisingly massive leaks, but also a couple things that work very well versus population. They're all playing extremely similar, but they seem to be split into two categories which play few spots differently. For example, one group ISOs around 45%, small blind limp. The other one ISOs around 90%. It should be extremely easy to detect them even after just a few thousand hands. By the way, at the moment of writing this post, a lot of them are currently playing in tournaments in the 25-25K guarantee is it's roughly one on each table.
Oh my God, that's a lot.
It is a lot. And this post actually speaks to why I think this went undetected for such a long period of time too. Post Joey calling it out around 2020 is that they don't feel like they're winning much. And if you're a good player, you don't mind them in the pool because you're probably winning from them, right? You just see like erratic play and you just. But
over the field, they're winning half a big
That's
blind.
the problem. It's like
that's hard to detect.
Correct. So it's like whenever they're just absolutely raking the rest of the field over the coals, you see what we see. Yeah. And now 10 million gets taken out of the population.
It's important to see the difference between, a hacker that, a super user and a bot.
Correct.
Because the super user, you're going to see massive win rates. With the bot, you're not.
Right.
It'd
Absolutely.
be like someone stealing from bank accounts and just taking a nickel from like
Correct.
a million
Like Office
different
Space,
people, right?
take the penny, right?
Yeah.
Over and over again till you have a bunch of money.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that carries us then into the first thread that I want to tug at. And this is not related to Tyler specifically. This is maybe born off of some posts that Tyler has made throughout the years. There was one that Tyler made dating back to, I think, 2020. 2019 maybe. I don't have it in front of me, but basically I do have the files that he sent, but unfortunately I couldn't translate them in enough time, and there was literally over 100,000 screenshots as well as voice recordings. So sorry, before I pull with this first thread, let's pull with this other one that is related to Tyler. So he has over 100,000 screenshots that were taken throughout the years, as well as some voice recordings. And I'm not sure where the recordings actually come from as far as like the voice node. But sorry, I'm just looking through my notes really quickly so I make sure I get this right. So it looks like there were bot reports for 2018, 2019, 2020. Okay, I'm pulling up the thread now. This is actually on 2+2 as well, I believe. And it's a downloadable file that anybody can go around and mess with. All of those reports include screenshots as well as some voice recordings from what is perceived to be I hate to use the word corporation, but like the organization that is somehow behind this. And it essentially seems to imply that this is very well organized, has many layers to it, that it will be able to be replicated and duplicated at sort of a mass volume approach. Now, to what degree ACR is able to suss this out and get things like removed, we're not really sure. We know that like in 2020, when Joey kind of blew the whistle on all of this to begin with, or maybe it was 2019-ish, ACR had a very strong response, and there was this perception that there were fewer bots infiltrating the games thereafter, and it could be that they were actually targeting this specific organization that seems to have thousands of accounts. But that's a little bit unknown at this point. What is known, though, is that there is a poster who goes by the name of BST5219. He posted in 2019, all the way back to when Joey was initially blowing the whistle. And he began to out this organization. It was called Neolab. So the website was neolab.io. They had... it says all the information about these companies can be found on this Russian website, rusprofile.ru. Unfortunately, it's only in Russian language, so you have to translate it. And then it also seems as though there was a branch in the US called neopokerlab.com. Now, all these links are dead as of 2024, I believe. But this thread is really fascinating if you have the desire to kind of comb through. It's basically saying that they're able to use their own AI. They have the ability to hack any SSL encryption of any room and using the video capture card to grab the picture. So they're not screen scraping. Because of 2 and 3, they're very difficult to detect. And the suggestion then is that they've been able to do this now en masse for years upon years. The other thing to look into then is how is Tyler like sussing this out or whatever the case may be. And the short answer to this is like, it's not just a community initiative. He's very well versed in the security measures of online. So he's out there kind of being the bot stopper actively. So this is something that, he actively works on. That's why I believe he made the initial post on 2+2, because it's getting to a point now where sites are kind of turning their ear or turning a blind eye to him, and he wants more community reinforcement to demonstrate, like, look, this problem does exist, and I have a fair amount of proof to demonstrate this sort of problem. So look, I didn't comb through the hundreds of thousands of hands that were submitted to Hand to Note. I couldn't comb through the hundreds of thousands of screenshots that were in another language, because it's a needle in a haystack. Like, I need somebody who is both fluent in whatever language they're already written in, and capable of going through all of the screenshots, listening to the recordings, and then being able to say, like, okay, screenshot number 6669 is going to demonstrate, some sort of like thing that is implicit or complicit to showing that they're botting, or whatever the case may be. But the evidence is there, right? It's there for people to comb through. It's there for people to kind of figure out on their own. The other thread to pull at, and this is what Joey was texting me about last night, and we were able to find a couple threads on 2+2, one from 2022 and one as recent as yesterday. They are basically talking about how the majority of the bot rings that exist are specifically targeting a skin under the WPN network called PokerKing.com. Now, I didn't even realize this was a site. Poker King, as I know it, was an app that used to exist that eventually bought WPT and became WPT Global. This is not that. PokerKing.com is not what the head company that owns WPT.
Right.
There's a clear segregation here. So it is some sort of skin that exists on the WPN network. And if we, to give you guys the cliffs of this thread, basically this guy submitted a bunch of information from PLO 400 to 2K, demonstrating a lot of suspicious activity and a lot of screen names that he believed to be bots. There's a lot of spoilers throughout this thread, but effectively he submitted all this to ACR, got no response, eventually reached out to Nananoku, seemed to have a back and forth with him. Nananoku kind of said, like, look, my hands are tied. I only get to see what they send me, type of stuff. And there isn't much I can do. And, the guy threatened to go public. Nananoku said, like, from the way you're wording it, sounds like you're already going to. And the communication kind of cut from there. So
is Nano still the head guy for security over there?
According to this thread, he was never the head. He's just a consultant.
Okay.
And I don't know how accurate that is. So if I'm incorrect about that, and Nananoku is actually like, the head of security or something, feel free to correct me. But according to this thread, he's just a consultant who doesn't work full time, but does get to see and scrutinize the major red flags that come across his desk. So eventually what the culmination of all this was that he ends up getting banned from I don't know if it was PokerKing.com or if it was the WPN network completely. But in any event, they wrote him an email that said, "Hello, we hope this email finds you well. Considering your lack of cooperation, we are sorry to say that we no longer feel comfortable conducting business with you. Your account will be enabled for the following 72 hours so you can withdraw the remaining balance. After that, your account will remain indefinitely closed." And they give him a link to winningpokernetwork.com/security and game integrity. And then they cite something in their TOS, permanent ban allowing to withdraw their funds, and basically explains, the protocols that he'll have to go through in order to exit. So it seems as though there's some correlation between this skin and making it easy to create accounts to bot with. And that's probably the simple long and short of it, is that something about that skin is less scrutinizing when it comes to new accounts. That's the only thing that I can really deduce from this. He kind of implied that PokerKing.com was a different company than WPN, and they may have like some sort of like licensing deal between each other or some sort of like partnership in some capacity, but that maybe the security of one is not necessarily overlapped by the other. I'm not really sure. It was a long thread to kind of dig through, and it was specific, but also there was a lot of like noise to kind of come through. But then Joey kind of reiterated this to me last night and said, like, PokerKing.com is like where the bots are infiltrating. That's where they're getting access to the pool. And he told me to like look into it a little bit further. I fell into another 2+2 thread posted by Krustovsky. And he basically said, the answer is Poker King. It's a Russian poker site, which is on WPN, but not owned or operated by WPN. Look into Poker King and you'll find what you're looking for. He then reiterated, everybody's missing the mark. Look into these skins that these players are playing on. How do you police something that you do not own or operate? How can you run a network if you're not in charge of the entities? Poker King is a lone wolf, and the hen house is WPN. Again, Poker King is not owned or operated by WPN. Once again, look into Poker King, you'll find what you're looking for. So I don't know who owns Poker King. It sounds like it's Russian-based, and it sounds like that's where a lot of these bot farms are making their way in to infiltrate. Mm-hmm. So not really sure how much WPN is able to police that, are currently trying to police that, are looking into that, are sweeping it under the rug. We don't have these answers.
So then why license it?
Well, we don't know. I don't even know that it's licensed. We have no idea what the fuck is going on. That's my point, right? This is all speculation. It's
crazy that someone else can just use your skin and like.
I think that happens all the time. Natural 8 is a skin of GG, and I'm not sure what their deal is, but I think that there's some segregation there, right? Especially since it originated as app-based.
And when you create the skin, you play with the entire pool, right? Or how's that work?
I think it also depends. Because you remember, I'm drawing on my own memory here, so I'm not
like
by
Empire
any stretch.
Poker.
Empire and Party, they would have separate tournaments, but the same cash tables.
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
Right. So you would be in segregated pools for MTTs. You'd play like a 500 re-entry, 20K nightly, and then Party would have like 215, 50K nightly.
Wasn't Lock Poker like part of something like that too?
Lock was on a network of some sort.
Black Chip or something.
Black Chip is a part of WPN. I don't remember what network Lock was on. It really doesn't matter. Almost all networks have skins.
Yeah.
It's just
Maybe
a matter
it was Cake.
of
Something like that.
I do remember Cake. Almost all networks have skins, and whenever you were talking about like the very small networks, like I think that there was a point where you were able to get your own personal skin. Like it might have been the Cake network where you could actually just have your own skin, and it was basically the way that they did affiliates.
But the player pools were different.
No, I think they were the same.
I think they were the same.
I think the player pools were the same. They were just opening your skin, so it was like them giving you a white label, and you could just put whatever graphics on it you wanted to brand yourself. But at the end of the day, it was overseen by the entire network, which it seems as though that may or may not be true with regards to WPN and Poker King. So this is a question we should get an answer to. Nagy hasn't spoken yet. The rumors are that he's going to come out public today, but would like answers on what the hell PokerKing.com has to do with WPN, and is this in fact a Russian site that is not being overseen from the security team of WPN? We don't know, but would love to know, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Would also love to know why they did away with the countries on ACR. That was something that was not a red flag, so to speak, but it was a way for players to kind of raise suspicions. If there were 6 people from Belarus at your table, and they're constantly squeezing you out of pots, or they're playing almost identical, like these are red flags for players to be able to police their own environment and like send concerns. They did away with that. Nobody really knows why. ACR never really gave a reason why they got rid of the country label on everybody's screen name. So that's something that I think everybody would like an answer to in some sort of capacity. I think that to some degree people would like an answer to why chat disappeared. That's probably not super important, but it is telling if the people that you suspect never engage in chat.
Right. Yeah.
That's another very shallow way of kind of looking into it. I want to read Patrick Howard's tweet. I was trying to get him on today, but he was feeling under the weather, so we couldn't make it happen. But He said, ACR does in fact have a major bot problem. I'm disappointed that the security team cannot see this when so much work in discovering these bot rings has already been done for them by members of the community. There's enough evidence at this point that it would only take me about 10 minutes to convince any reasonable person beyond reasonable doubt that ACR has many bots at low to mid stakes. However, to share this information publicly would also educate bot rings on how to avoid detection in the future. I can sort of understand the thinking behind proposing the challenge, referring to what Moneymaker did, but it's totally unnecessary, will only further erode players' trust in game integrity. Wholeheartedly agree. The sense I get from ACR Poker is that they are trying to keep the game safe, but they simply don't have the resources to do that right now. If ACR is serious about solving the problem, please reach out to me. My DMs are open. P.S. Please consider liking this post for visibility. The big thing I want to touch on here that I think is getting overlooked is that so much of this stuff from security is falling through the cracks. And that's what's really bothersome to me. And this is across the board. This is regulated sites, unregulated sites, major players like GG, ACR, Stars, Party, minor players like, Ignition or whatever, Global, for example, right? The players have been so fucking diligent in policing these games themselves over the last 6 to 18 months. We've caught so much nefarious activity, way more than the 15 years prior, right?
I remember people used to always say back in like the day, like, "Oh yeah, I don't play on online poker because I don't trust it." Right?
Yeah, you used to laugh at them.
Oh no, yeah, but like a lot of people are like, "Oh come on, like it's not that bad." But who knows how bad it's been and how bad it is now? And it's probably just like you said, it's getting more and more sophisticated.
I think frustration is probably the right word, and the most frustrating part I think is the fact that he mentions here that in 10 minutes. He could convince any reasonable person beyond a reasonable doubt that ACR has many bots. How is it that this person can do that in 10 minutes? And again, we're taking his word for it. How is it that security isn't all over this?
Maybe they are. That's the thing.
Maybe
it's not a matter of convincing them that it exists. It's about actually solving the problem. That, like, he's not offering a solution. Maybe he is. I'm not sure. But like more specifically, he's just saying like, I can demonstrate the problem.
Right.
And that's, step one. And that's what the community has been doing time and time and time again. I said yesterday that the consistent theme of security issues online is that so much is falling through the cracks. Players are now forced into a full-time job of being on the neighborhood watch while also paying the rake.
Yeah.
Right? We've all become fucking Scruff McGruff here. It's like Scruff McGruff, Chicago, Illinois.
I knew it was coming.
60652.
Can't help himself.
What the fuck's going on? Like that's not okay. That hundreds of players are sussing out thousands of accounts that are potentially taking millions out of the player pool, and security's kind of going like, whoops. Never saw that one coming.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, maybe this has always just been the case, but they were a lot better at, or maybe the community was just not really in a position, technologically speaking, to be sharp enough to detect this stuff. But the fact is the cat's out of the bag now. We as players seem to be pretty close to being on par with what the security team knows. At least as far as detection goes, right? We're probably nowhere near as sophisticated as they are with policing and with being able to actually use the tech. But when it comes to identifying out-of-line play, when it comes to identifying things that just don't add up, we have more resources available to us now than we ever have. Being able to run 100,000 hands through hand to note or millions of hands and then seeing all the anomalies. It's pretty. I love that. That's great. It's pretty easy now.
Kind of wearing the same kind of.
Right. It's pretty easy for us to hold security's feet to the fire. And, now we're talking about what possible solutions do we have moving forward. I truly think, and I know that this may not be practical, and I know I might not be the guy to lead it because, again, my feet aren't in the arena. I'm very much in live, but it's really difficult for us to continue to show up, even if it's your livelihood, even if it's like the way that you're making money. I get it. I empathize with you. But if you continue to show up, as Pads mentioned, if you continue to show up without these sites acknowledging that they need a full overhaul and actually following through and doing that, then we are absolutely drawing dead.
Right.
So to me, this is just as simple of a solution as, I shouldn't say simple because it implies that like they're just overlooking and not doing it, but it's as simple of a process as what I suggested with HCL. Like, get your affairs in order. And the difference here is that we as customers can actually hold their feet to the fire. So with ACL, it's like the only thing you can do is not watch.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's yeah.
And yeah, that'll hurt them. But like, you know, whatever. We're all here to see the circus. We're all here to see the car crash. If people are going to cheat on live stream, we want to fucking watch it.
Yeah.
You know, like it almost goes the other way where we're rooting for shit like Jack 4 to happen because it gives us something to do and something to talk about. But in this instance, like, we can actually speak with our pocketbooks. If you're a reg on these sites and they aren't doing anything to address these issues, to issue refunds at, you know, en masse, like thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars to the affected parties. If that stuff doesn't happen, you need to withdraw your funds. You just collectively all need to withdraw your funds for some temporary period of time.
Or if you have the ability to play live, right?
Yeah, of course. But it's not just about going to play elsewhere. It's withdrawing your funds decreases their liquidity. It absolutely puts them in the pinch.
Hit them where it hurts.
It demonstrates to them that enough is enough, right? Leaving your funds on there sitting dormant doesn't have the same impact.
Right.
Their liquidity there's no run on the bank. You know, it doesn't stress their payment processing. It doesn't stress their liquidity pool. It doesn't signal to them like I may not come back.
Yeah.
Right? But withdrawing your funds does. And if we can cut into their liquidity pools by some percentage in the short term, you bet your ass you're going to see some corrective measures taking place. Whether it's in the form of refunds, whether it's in the form of demonstrating higher, stronger security to us, whether it's even in the form of like figuring out a way to be a little bit more transparent. I know it's a touchy subject. Like, you never want to let the crooks get ahead of the good guy by, you know, divulging. And even Patrick said that in his tweet. Like, I would say it publicly, but then it just allows more people to bot. So it's like, I get it. It's sensitive, but we need more. We need quarterly reports demonstrating what actions have been taken in detail, right? I want to know how many people were caught RTAing on your site. I want to know how many people were caught colluding on your site. I want to know how many people were caught, running bots on your site. And you don't have to release names. You know, I know that probably is putting you in harm's way when it comes to legality, but like, you can release data, you can release the numbers. You know, I want to know how much money was taken out of the player pool in a nefarious way and what you plan on doing to pay us back. Because as Pad stated so eloquently, they're not stealing from the site, they're stealing from us.
Right.
Until the site pays it back, it's the community that's being stolen from. And that's the biggest issue that I see with this, which, you know, it's not practical. I know that nobody's going to fucking pull their funds. I know that ACR Sunday is going to pop off as usual. But at some point, the people who are sharp in this industry have to kind of say, enough is enough, and find a way to temporarily shut them down. I'm not calling for the end of online. I don't think that, you know, you should never play again. I don't think you should feel like your money is not safe there, because largely we have solved a lot of problems throughout the decade. You know, I don't think we're going to run into another issue like Full Tilt where the funds aren't segregated. I don't think that we're in.
We'll find out if there's a run on the bank on
Correct.
the ACR.
That's true.
We'll find out
that
real
part is very true.
Yeah.
I don't think that we're going to see another absolute poker situation where there's an insider who has whole cards revealed and is super using. I don't think those things are going to occur. I think that the structure of these companies have learned from the past and are doing a better job of being above board. But I do think that security is still, you know, riding the struggle bus a bit. And I do think that the advancements in technology are making it such that it's not great to populate these sites. And the thing is that if you pool your funds and don't play online for, like, if we community-wide could figure out a way to take a month off, just take a month off, man. Let them figure it the fuck out. Maybe 2, because it'll take some time for everybody to get out of the game or whatever. But take some period of time off, right? What's going to happen is you drain the bots of their lifeblood, right? You strangle them. They lose their oxygen. There's no more incentive for them to get in there in soft pools and just pull out 5 big blinds per hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you really do have to incentivize the operators to want to do this, right? Because they're like, the bots create rake for them.
Right.
The bots are stealing from the players, not from them. And if you look at any casino in anywhere, they have the most elaborate security systems. Why? Because when people cheat the casino, they're stealing from the operators.
Yeah.
They're not stealing from.
That's
they're
the
not.
big
They're not
difference.
right. And you just see the massive security to do everything to prevent it. Right. But when there's no incentive, when they're not getting stolen from themselves, then they're less incentivized. I mean, obviously they're incentivized. They want their site to be secure so people come play.
But not as much as if it was directly coming from them.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I think the other thing, and we already touched on this a little bit, Guapo, you kind of brought it up. Well, I mean, I guess like you were kind of insinuating the boycott maybe a little bit, but I think the KYC guidelines, at some point we have to bend as a community and just kind of like demand it.
Yeah.
Even though it's unregulated and there's nothing from an overseeing governmental party demanding them to utilize stricter KYC guidelines, I think at this point, like, it needs to be the next step. We just shouldn't trust our money on sites that don't use proper KYC.
Yeah.
You should be excited to put in your name, address, driver's license, whatever the fuck they're asking to ensure your identity to be true. And alongside this, we need real names. We absolutely, there's no reason at this point to not have real name poker. I get it. Everything is always around. We need to protect the Rex. At some point, you need to look around in the dark room and realize the Rex ain't there, man. Mm-hmm. The fun money online are people that think that they're still beating the game, even though they're losing some amount per 100. Like, just make it real name poker. We've seen GG do this at high stakes. None of the Rex there seem to get upset. Bill Perkins is happy to play as Bill Perkins. Yeah. I think maybe he is still Gas Trader. I'm not sure. But like, the point is like, it's just the right next step. KYC, everybody. Try to use real names as much as humanly possible. If you have here's the thing. If you have a strong KYC guideline, then you can use discretion with real names. Yeah. You can make it such that like, oh, this guy's a really big VIP who doesn't want his identity revealed, but the consumers have confidence that we know our customers, and therefore, like, we're going to let him use his alias. Yeah. And sure, it'll signal to everybody that this guy's probably a bit of a whale or a VIP. Who cares?
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
No.
He knows
who he is.
Yeah, this is all a good step in the in the right direction. So I think that these are reasonable, I guess. Reasonable solutions. Are they enough? I don't know.
It's never enough.
Sure.
But, you can always strive to be better. You can always strive to make it more secure.
This is just my perspective from somebody who's not out there battling on these streets of things that will make life a lot easier for new consumers. Like, if you were targeting me, somebody who does not play online, to come play on your site, these are things that would make me feel better. Yeah.
Do we know what the legality is of is there any punishment for the people that are creating these bots? Probably not, because they're in different countries or there's not. You can't really punish somebody. I think how do you disincentivize someone from creating a bot farm?
I think it has more to do with where the actual company is running from.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, also just like, it's very difficult to create a bot farm if it's very difficult to create an account. If there are a lot of hoops to jump through to create an account, it's hard to create thousands of accounts. Yeah. And now those accounts become a lot more valuable. So then the next step of security that we have to worry about is real people actually selling their accounts. Right? Like, that becomes a problem. So now maybe you institute like the random camera checks where people have to play with a camera on them. And look, there are get arounds there too. But if you have strong KYC guidelines, you're using real names, and they have to randomly have camera checks, it's going to be really difficult to fake an identity, right? Because the thing is, if you just have aliases with no KYC, then I just need a human to show up on camera. And I can hire a fucking college kid for $25 an hour to sit there for 6 hours and then just have another college kid rotate in. You know, it's not that difficult. It's an easy desk job, to say the least. But when you couple all of these things together, I think you add layers of security that are actually quite strong and make it at least more difficult for a lot of these problems that are continually here. You know, these bots, this has been an issue, especially on ACR, but there was a bot ring found on GG as well. I can't remember who sent me the screenshot, but basically, like, he was saying, like, look, this bot ring, which there may be overlap from, was found on GG, and I know that it was a bot ring because I got a refund. So like, these refunds come through, and, like, you know, we don't hear enough about it, kind of thing. I think that is probably a strong step in the next direction. I want to wrap this a little bit, circling back to the influencer stuff. I think Rob Kuhn put out a good message later last night, kind of, you know, deflecting off of what he may have originally said or what DePaulo said with regards to, like, we don't even know if these are bots, yada, yada, yada. I think that this response is more of what we're looking for from the ambassador side. But most importantly, like, look, I speak to Rob quite frequently offline. He's very, very diligent about getting this to the higher ups. Like, I promise you that we want to villainize all these people, but, like, they're doing what they can. I'm certain of that. As tone deaf as the message from Ebony and Chris may have been, especially because, like, they're not tech people, they're not on the inside of security, so, like, they're just kind of talking out of pocket to save face for the company. That's not what we want. We don't want to shill, right? We want somebody who recognizes there's a fucking problem, tells us, like, look, I'm escalating this as best that I possibly can. And whatever comes of it, like, I'm going to ride or die with you guys at the end. And, like, that was what Pads was speaking to with regard to his stance when he was at Party. And this is more in line with the messaging that Rob put out yesterday. He said, look, we welcome anybody with open arms who has information. We all have one goal in mind: prevent cheating at all costs. If you believe you can help or have accounts you believe cheated, please reach out to me or other team pros. A collective group of minds and data is only going to be as beneficial for all of us to help the cause and safety for online poker. Much love, everyone. And there's another aspect of this that I think is really unfair. And, you know, a lot of other conversations have spawned off of it. But the notion of being a team pro is not the same as being a consultant.
Yeah.
And I think we overlap those two quite frequently. I think that this position needs to be kind of reimagined as being consultants, right? If that's going to be the expectation from the community, and these guys are going to burn on the cross, because, like, look, across the board, these ambassadors are getting crucified for either not speaking or delivering the worst fucking messaging that you could imagine. And then the company not having the wherewithal to say, like, bro, no, don't say that. You know, don't offer a reward for people to come bot on our site. No, the opposite's happening. Like, somehow they're, you know, Nagy's, like, singing a Jingle Bells tune and saying, like, yeah, bring them all out. Like, Jingle Bells, bought some fell. Like, what the fuck is going on here? You know what I mean? Pull that Foxen tweet up again. I don't have it, but I do remember I wanted to touch on it.
I literally just deleted it. Sorry.
Oh, damn it. That's okay.
But the sentiment was.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what I wanted to touch on. Before I get to that, I do want to I want to address a couple more with regards to the ambassador. So Bonomo tweeted replying to Pads, and this is something that I don't think we really even covered very well when it happened. I mean, I guess, like, we weren't really even a podcast when these were popping off, but even in hindsight, when we were talking about the Jake Ali stuff, we probably didn't cover this deeply enough. Bonomo said, huge kudos to Pads for speaking out. I want to remind people what GG's response was after the scandal where Jake Ali and their horses were colluding and RTing on a massive scale. Quote unquote, and I didn't know this at the time, but this is a wild statement. The security team did not enforce any of these rules on Blade because it was an invitational private event. So to give some perspective, back in COVID times, I believe, and this overlaps with Jake, Ali, Bryn, and everybody who was accused of the sort. There were 25Ks popping off regularly, like 5, 6, 7 of them a day. And there was one specific VIP who I believe lost like somewhere between 25 and 30 million over that time through those events. So it was one of the biggest EV events that the high rollers had ever seen. And a lot of people swung hard. There were some big winners and some huge losers chasing that EV throughout the course of it. But in the midst of it, obviously Jake and Ali were RTAing the whole thing. And when that was later discovered, basically what GG said is like, look, we didn't actually orchestrate any of these events. This was all handled behind the scenes and organized by Bryn, by the VIPs, and others who wanted these games to run, and they ran privately, which is very unfair because they were public to register. Anyone could have played them.
Wow.
It wasn't like a private group, number one. And number two, I think the bigger point that Bonomo makes is no one ever told us that the game integrity wasn't going to be upheld, right? It wasn't known that they weren't going to enforce the rules on these private events. Had that been known ahead of time, everybody would have cheated or not played or whatever the case may be, right? So effectively, like, this is another instance where I think response matters so fucking much. And more importantly, these sites just need to do better, right? Like, you can't say that we didn't enforce the rules. Instead, you have to say, like, fuck, we're going to have to come out of pocket millions of dollars here to make this right. And in the future, that will force, if we hold them to that standard where they come out of pocket millions of dollars to make right what Jake and Ali stole in that scenario, then in the future, that will force higher integrity on their side so they don't have to fucking refund all this money.
Yeah, they don't want to do that.
Right, of course. It hurts the bottom line. And like, look, I think GG, I think ACR, I think Party, Stars, WSOP, I truly believe, BetMGM, I truly believe they all want to grow the game. And I truly believe that they're heavily invested in doing things that are going to bring more eyes, not less, to the game. But I don't think that they're doing what they need to do right now to clean up their own house. I think largely across the board, you know, when I kind of mentioned with the hacking that like certain crumbs are just going to fall through the cracks. And luckily the community is there to provide service and offer up some sort of response. The problem is too many crumbs are falling. Like it's not crumbs anymore. It's full cookies.
Yeah.
And it feels as though we're the ones that are kind of getting raked over the coals. The last thing, I didn't really want to get into this, but
there's Foxens.
Yeah. All right, I'll talk about this before I jump to the last thing. So Foxen basically says, I basically play zero online poker anymore because I can't trust the legitimacy of the game. It's an extremely sad reality, right? That's the other thing that you can kind of look to. When you think of world-class players, less a handful of exceptions, you know, the true goats of the online world, Linus, I guess he doesn't even really play much anymore, but like Red Baron, the handful of guys that are Makefin, the handful of guys that are out there battling high stakes day in and day out, right? There are so few of them, maybe a dozen, right? A dozen known players that are willingly choosing to show up day in and day out and battle the highest stakes, right? And maybe there are hundreds whenever you really look at it and include MTTs and, whatever else the case may be. But when we zoom out and we say, who are the biggest names in poker? Who are the people that we trust implicitly? Who are the people that lifetime are the largest winners? The vast majority of them mostly play live now, if not exclusively, right? And that should be a telltale sign that A, live is softer, which we knew already, but B, part of the reason why it's softer is because you just can't overcome all these extenuating circumstances.
Right. It's
so hard to overcome the rake, the bots, the collusion, the RTAing. Like, this is a very challenging thing, you know? I think that it goes maybe overlooked that somewhere along the lines, ambassadors actually did stand up for what they believed in. Guys like Ike, Kanu, Vicky Corey, they left Stars. And they left it over something that was just like stealing EV from certain group of players with the Supernova Elite. Yeah. It wasn't over cheating. It wasn't over all this stuff.
No.
And I guess like that's the last point that I want to make is that, I think that I didn't want to bring it up because like I just kind of disagree with a lot of it, but I got tagged in the thread, and that's unfortunate because now I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah. So, if you ever want Berkey to talk about something, just tag him in a thread.
Well, to be fair to Vanessa, she didn't tag me. Somebody else tagged me in it, but now I kind of do feel obligated to comment on it. So essentially, like, you know, she put out 2 very long threads, kind of calling these sites into question. A lot of it was just raking GG over the coals, which I understand. But let's be abundantly clear here. Like, there are some points that I agree with, some points that I disagree with, but like these threads are so fucking tone deaf. Like, you were an ambassador for ACR and did not leave when Nagy was like demonstrated to have just like been way fucking out of line with WePro and others, like sexual innuendo, just, you know, behavior that is just absolutely unacceptable for somebody who's leading a company. And your message is like largely supporting women, a feminist, and, you know, wanting to do what's right. You didn't leave then, you know, you didn't walk from the check. You were a part of GG as an ambassador, and you pushed back really hard there. And, you know, or I guess maybe she wasn't an ambassador, maybe she was an affiliate. But again, even after all that was said and done, there were tweets that surfaced a lot of other information. Like, she was still affiliating for them. So I don't think that it does any good to drag these companies and imply that, you know, they are all pieces of shit who only care about their bottom line, especially if we're all willing to take a check. You know what I mean? So I think, like, you know, now she's a part of Stars, and she's basically saying like the places that I would be most confident to play would be Poker Stars, Party Poker, and I do believe WPT is a quality brand. And it's like, well, those are the 3 sites that either you're currently a part of or haven't been a part of yet that are still major players. And I think that it becomes a little bit tone deaf whenever we're doing, you know, a total disservice to people who are looking out for their own bottom line. Like, people are going to play GG and ACR because they can fucking win there. They're the softer sites. They have more volume, right? In spite of everything that's going on, there are still people that are winning there. We have to acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. We can't just like jump on our soapbox and just be like, oh, the morally right thing to do is to give your business to the people that, you know, don't allow charity. First of all, we don't know what the fuck is going on at Stars, Party, and the like, you know, because they don't have the same traffic. GG has 70% of the market share. ACR is, you know, not far behind. Stars is still a major player, but again, like, it's easy to encourage people to give like Stars and BetMGM business because they're regulated in the United States. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much of that carries over to the rest of the world, but there's a reason like they're not getting the same traffic that they used to. It's not because they're more secure, right? Like, let's be clear. So I do think it's important to hold everybody accountable, but also understand that we're all on the same fucking team. You know, we're all, as much of a problem as I've had with Nagy in the past, and as horrible of behavior that he's displayed that I condemn, at the end of the day, I still believe ACR is like a really fucking important player to the poker ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Like a major,
it has to be with all the volume. Yeah,
it's a major catalyst to online poker surviving. So is GG. It does not fight us, or it does not help us to make enemies of them and force them to, you know, basically dismiss us completely and just do what they're doing. Because the fact of the matter is, if they don't care about growth and all they care about is just running this thing to zero, but making as much as humanly possible in the meantime, which for what it's worth, Stars has been guilty of in the past. So let's not let anybody off the hook here. If that's all they care about, at the end of the fucking day, they're going to do it, regardless of what we say. But if we play along nicely and we help them see the longer vision here, which I truly do believe a lot of these heads that are behind these sites want to actually see come to fruition. They want to be around in 10 years. They want to own major tours and, you know, have a live crossover, have a live presence. They want to be able to have their hands in everything. They want to be like what Party Poker and WPT were in the early 2000s. You know, I do believe that that's what they want. If that's the case, then those of us with voices and with the knowledge to be able to help have to cooperate in some sort of capacity. And I'm saying that from a perspective where I'm saying, like, look, if you have money on these sites, you should pull it for a short period of time. You should make them feel the squeeze, right? Those two things can coexist.
Yeah.
I can still believe in their product and believe in them as industry leaders and still hold their feet to the fire and say, like, look, you're not doing enough.
Give them a nudge in the right direction on what to do.
Yeah, you just hope for the best, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, these sites are going to do what they want to do. They're going to operate how they see fit. And it's up to us to decide if we want to give them business or not.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a really fucking hard thing to just wag your fists and then go play a full Sunday schedule. You don't really accomplish anything there, you know? All right. I hope that adequately covered what we understand about the biting situation at this time. And I know this has been going on for a while, but I do want to get to today's In the Muck. So let's lighten the mood a little bit. And let's potentially roast the tortoise here.
Oh boy. All right, here we go, Burke. Back in the muck
Welcome.
at the Jewel.
You still haven't left, huh?
No, you know, I mean, I'm in and out. I'm in and out, you know.
Okay.
These hands just keep coming up. Sometimes you just win, and it's so easy. And then sometimes you just there you go. If you want to head down,
Tortoise needs
I'll be there
action.
tonight.
Incredible. Bro's just doxing the jewel out here.
I think that's okay. I think the Jewel wants to be doxed. So playing 2-3 at South Point, the Jewel, and we got a straddle on the button. Now we didn't put that on the
Replayer.
but
Can't do
yeah,
it.
yeah, I can't do it. Okay, so couple limps. I make it 20 with the ace jack. The straddler on the button calls, and everyone else folds. And we go to a very, very advantageous flop for me.
What do
which
we
is-
know about our villain?
Our villain seems to be kind of crazy. She was just like playing a lot of hands, kind of just, you know, splashing around and, you know, just like saw me like bluff a couple times and seemed like she wanted to get me. I don't know. So I go ahead and lead for 20.
Continue, yeah.
I continue for 20, and she raises. And at this point, in my mind, I'm like, I don't know. I think maybe a call is right, but like, you know, if she just has a jack, the board, you know, maybe like overcards can come and I don't get it all, or maybe she thinks I'm re-bluffing and she just goes for it. You know, a lot of different things can happen.
Yeah.
When I put in that third bet.
I think out of position here, I think I just call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally reasonable, but like also, you know, it's just like, I don't know. I felt like getting the money now was the right approach. So I go ahead and make it 200, and sure enough, just rips it in.
All you can eat.
And I snap call, and the run out comes, and I am showed the 7-deuce offsuit for trip deuces.
Okay.
She was so happy to turn that hand over.
Of course. Fuck you. That is a real fuck you hand.
Oh, man.
All right. What are you in the muck about?
I'm in the muck about how to approach like the flop play.
Okay.
Obviously.
So
Right.
my perspective here is like we're making pretty big errors.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really am basing this off of is that these low to mid stake games, in my opinion, are overly passive and under bluffed. So even with
Yeah.
your precursor of
Mhm.
she's trying to get me,
Yeah.
a lot of times getting you is just flopping bingo.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So the C-bet I think is good. Facing flop raise, my butthole would clench.
Yeah. Same here.
I'd be a little tight. You know, I'd be a little shook.
Yeah.
And I get the desire to like just want to play for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you just have better hands to do this with, like queens, kings, aces.
Right.
Maybe even less so aces because like there's no need
Right.
to
You
protect
want her
it.
to have ace jack. Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah,
Right.
you want her to have some jack X. You're also I guess the big upside to aces would be like you block ace deuce.
I literally thought that in my mind as
Right.
well. I was like, I block ace. Like, I was like, there's one combination of ace deuce.
Yeah. Well, there's two.
well-
The deuce of diamonds was out there. You had,
Yeah,
or did you miss?
I think maybe that the board might be wrong because I remember
Okay.
thinking in the moment that she only has one combination.
well,
of
she had
ace.
7 deuce off, so like,
Yeah, so she has all the deuces.
She has all the
she's a little
You know
bit
what's
wider.
funny? You know what is funny and really, you know what really grinds my gears? If she had 6 deuce offsuit, she probably just folds. But since it's 7 deuce,
Right,
I'm gonna
right.
play and get on with the 7 deuce.
Right.
It's like if she has 6 deuce, which is a better hand than
Yeah.
7 deuce, a higher equity hand than 7 deuce,
Yeah.
right? She probably just mucks it. But since it's 7 deuce, she plays it and then just gets the perfect
Remind me
flop.
how the button straddle works. Do the blinds act first?
No, they don't.
They act.
so
it skips.
it starts under the gun.
Okay,
and
so
then,
she should be a little bit tighter, but it's the jewel. So I'm just going to give her credit for defending her soldiers here pretty wide. And look, here's the thing: you can't make a big error. You're only 80 blinds or 80 straddles effective.
right.
The SPR is relatively low, so like stacking off here with top pair, top kicker is not going to be a tremendous error.
Mm-hmm.
But my general thoughts in these types of games is that I aggress until I get re-aggressed against,
Yeah.
and then I fear. I like just fear fold a lot.
I think in the macro, this is really good advice. I mean, I'm far be it from me to tell someone how to go play poker, but overbluff and overfold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Like
I
when
know you
you're
said
playing
fear
these-
fold. You're
these games.
you're not implying that you're folding ace jack here.
I wouldn't fold the flop,
No.
but versus a big
Right.
turn barrel, I
Yeah.
would strongly consider it because
Well, the turn was a king too, so now I can't even be king jack.
correct.
Right. So like I thought about that too. I was like, if I called, I was like, I could probably get away with this on the turn.
Yeah.
Get away from this on
Yeah,
the
because
turn.
like, you can just logic
Yeah.
your way through where it's just like, what would she find a double with here that I beat?
Yeah.
Like, is she just going hard with Queen Jack, Jack 10? Probably
it
not.
felt like she wanted to do that
On the
but-
flop,
Yeah.
you can convince yourself
Right.
of that. That's why you
Yeah.
put the 3-bet in and then you
Yeah.
get jammed on. But like
Yeah.
now you get jammed on, you feel real bad. Or at least you should.
Yeah.
The second thing I would note is I would probably size a little bit differently when you 3-bet the flop because you don't really leave yourself a lot of room to fold.
Yeah. Maybe just like click.
Just click.
Yeah. I mean,
Like 175 maybe.
I mean, I guess like you make it 200.
Yeah.
There's 450 in the pot. She jams for she's jamming for 3/4 pot. You could have some folds, I guess.
Yeah.
It's close. I would personally probably go like 175.
Yeah.
I'm splitting hairs here.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
But
But I get what you're saying. I understand.
But I would like to
understand
have some
the,
bluffs.
The sentiment of what you're saying.
yeah, I would like to have some bluffs, and I would also like to discourage getting jammed on. So the deeper we can leave her, like the closer
Yeah.
to pot, the less
Right.
likely she is to just rip.
Right.
But I guess if you're targeting a worse jack, maybe that becomes a little bit less of a concern. Let's take a look at the wizard and see how it feels about your play.
How's the wizard feel?
Hey, what do you
Look
know?
at that.
The manager.
What?
Okay.
Is that a green check mark?
That's-
it is.
You got a green check mark next to your hand.
Okay, well, let's find out why. Oh, look at this. Oh, man, I'm the wizard right now.
Oh my God, it's so brutal. Okay, so to give you guys an idea of how I set this sim up,
Man, the wizard would just get crushed in live. No, it would
just
not.
wrecked. Just absolutely wrecked.
No, it would not. It would kill.
To give you guys an idea of how I set this sim up, essentially we had to manufacture some things here, right? Because the button is a straddle, so it's going to be closer
Right.
to a big blind defense range. So what I did is I took the pre-fill range of 200 big blind 9-handed live.
So I'm correct with an asterisk.
Yeah, sort of.
No, I think I'm right. I just
We'll show you why.
told you I am the sim.
We'll show you why you're wrong pretty quickly.
Okay.
You'll be able to identify pretty quickly in this stream.
Yeah.
But anyway, I took the pre-fill range from GTO Wizard for 200 big blinds live, which is, as you can see, 10% rake up to 2 big blinds. And then for the button range, we actually pulled this from us at Solve for Why. So I have a 8 max 100 big blind plus ante range. This is like the widest defense range that I could find, and that was basically what I was looking for. Is like, what's a jewel range?
Is there 7 deuce in there?
Right. So, well, it's close. So we took the big blind defense range. If there was an ante and the open was only to 2.5x, which Lamanna actually opened to 3.5x. So we took this range, and what we landed with was this sim ultimately. As you can see, Brian's c-bet here is pure. He doesn't really do any checking. So quarter
Got that
pot.
one right.
Yeah, so quarter pot here is pretty good. And be mindful of like what the SPR is, because it's a straddled pot and because there were limpers who folded. They're arriving at the flop with only an SPR of 7. So stacking off here isn't like insane by any stretch of the imagination. Like you're pretty close. You're pretty close to a 3-bet pot SPR.
Yeah.
That's a byproduct of you only being 80 straddles effective to start. So as you can see, she does play a fair amount of raises to the size chosen. So about 15% of her range is going to raise. Her 2x is like very weird in the sense that like king 2, 10 2 just go pure, and then there's a lot of trapping with like ace deuce, queen deuce, jack deuce, 9 deuce, where the offsuit variety of ace deuce just like starts to pure pile, right? So it wants to go pretty hard, and then the lower 2x starts to get after it. I think
see 7 deuces isn't in there.
Seven
the
deuce,
only one.
Even 7 deuce suited didn't find its way in. It's very unlucky for you. But you know, she has plenty of 2x if she's playing close to a big blind defense. So she does do a lot of raising, and we can see that most of that does come from the trips range. She'll also have a lot of jack X, and then her bluffs are going to come from like overcards like king queen suited. You know, hands like a little bit. I mean, she's not really going to have ace queen off, but like a little bit of like ace 8 suited with a backdoor.
Why wouldn't she have ace queen off?
I think she would 3-bet it sometimes, or a lot of the times anyway.
No.
And then, you know, like other backdoor hands that mix call, raise, fold, like queen 8 suited. You know, like I said, we have a lot of jack X here in the raising range. So the raise is very reasonable. As you see Brian's response, then he actually 3-bets here quite a bit.
Heyo.
And it's the range that I suggested it would be, right?
No, I was thinking, I was like, what would the wizard do here? And I was just like,
And
you know what, the wizard would probably 3-bet, so that's what I'm going to do.
Hey, Matt, as a newcomer to G2 Wizard and also just to Sims in general, is node locking a thing here where we could actually start to like say, okay, well, this person isn't capable of having these hands and is definitely capable of having these hands? In other words, is there a way to like expand it to say, okay, she does have 7 deuce here?
Oh yeah, you could just add it to the preflop range, of course.
So you just add it to the preflop range, and then that will give you a different output as to maybe what
it won't change a thing.
You don't think so?
No, it's just a few more combinations of 7
right,
deuce.
but it's
Brian would still need to like
and
raise
it's not that relevant because at the time I wasn't putting 7 deuce in her range.
It really doesn't matter. What's more important is if we wanted to truly node lock this, and it would demonstrate Brian now making a mistake, is if we took all of her 2x and painted this as all raises. So if she pure raises all of her 2x and never traps,
now his raise is horrible.
I mean, it's like start mixing folds with ace jack.
Right, exactly.
Look how much 2x she has. And then if you start adding in offsuit combos, like it becomes even further.
But it's just like it's hard to think that she has that much 2x.
Correct. Obviously, that's reasonably true. So Brian's 3-bet size is reasonable.
Nice.
The wizard actually went a little bit larger.
A little bit larger.
Yeah, leaving about 66% pot behind instead of 75%. And then of course, whatever this is how you'll know that you fucked up, because she jammed 7 deuce, right? So she stuffed a deuce in your eye.
Right.
Find me the deuce that jams. Yeah, it doesn't exist.
It's
not in theory land, right? Like the thing is whenever
because why would you on a jack deuce deuce rainbow when you get ready? Like you're just gonna fold out everything.
Well, because you don't have a deuce,
right?
And when you do, you mostly play. Well, you exclusively play trap because you have so little of it,
right?
So your 3-bets to call off are just pairs that want to protect. It's exactly what I said it was. It's mostly queens and kings. Right. A little bit of aces, and then a little bit of ace jack. And then you have some like bluffs that are happy to like 3-bet fold.
Right.
So like ace king suited, because it can realize really well through this. It can just turn a 10, a queen, an ace, a king, and just like be all in on the turn. That's a nice one.
Yep.
You know, some of these backdoor hands like ace 10, same thing. Like ace 7 suited with a backdoor flush draw. You know, these are just basically playing to round out range. So her jam should not be nutted.
Right.
Our jam should fall in line with the similar of what your 3-bets are. Hands that want to protect, like ace jack is just going to play for stacks here. It's not going to call and trap. It's not going to call and let an overcard fall. You know, it's just all in, like whatever. It's happy to get your bluffs to fold. It's happy to, you know, force you into a weird situation, because like when we see your call offs, actually, yeah, I'm not really sure why ace jack jams. It doesn't do well versus your calls. Right? Like it's just losing to all your calls. It's losing or chopping, but maybe it just like loses more EV by playing call. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Honestly, it's probably just that the pot is so big that the amount of times that you have ace jack, it's worth it to put the money in.
Maybe, yeah.
Or, you know, the times you have whatever bluffs like king queen, for example. Denying equity to king queen is good. So that's probably why it arrives at a jam there. And then you have a pure call off. So you didn't make any mistakes.
Good job, B.
Thank you.
Well, when she starts jamming too, let's just change one thing real quick here, okay? Let's look and see what happens whenever she starts ripping all of her 2x that's made it this far. And by the way, this is a fraction of the 2x that she'll actually have.
So what you're doing right now is this node locking?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
we
now,
don't know that she pure jams them all.
Well, we don't know that, but we also know that she has way more 2s than this. So whether she pure jams or not, this should be adequate to.
You only had 7 deuce and ace deuce. That was the only 2s she used.
Right. Everything else suited, not suited, doesn't matter at all.
No.
Just hits the muck pre. Okay. So now we've locked her. How did I miss the queen deuce? Let's go back to the lock. My bad. Whoopsie. Set straight. Yeah, there we go. I don't know how I skipped over those to begin with, but all right, let's lock her for jamming all 2x. Alongside the other hands that, she jams at some frequency, the bluffs, the ace jack, the king queens, whatever. Okay, so now let's see how you respond. You might start folding. No, the response is the same.
Wow.
I'm a little surprised. I wonder if by locking her to jam all of those, if it changes your check raise though. Yeah, I think your check raise frequency drops a bit. So you see kings actually goes up. King starts to check raise more. But ace jack and ace jack suited actually decreases. So you just, basically play the game of I don't have many combos of these. And so I want to exploit the times that she has a jack because that's still within her range.
And check raise them.
Right. Now, if we lock this further and we took out like her ever jamming a jack or a bluff, right? If we just like take out, if we take out all of these, fold. So fold, god damn it, 100%. Sorry. Fold king queen. What other bluffs are there? These are all jack X. Fold ace 4. Fold ace 3. Oh, let's have her jam ace deuce off. I missed that one. And then let's have her call like the other. If we have her call all the jack X.
Jacks.
This should change your strategy quite a bit, I would
You
imagine.
would think.
All right.
Jack 8.
Yeah, whatever. So now I would suspect that she's imbalanced to the point where
I can't
really play
put in
top
the
pairs
raise.
profitably any longer.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, your call off range still remains the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I would suspect that we would go back here and see your raising frequencies decrease. Interesting.
Doesn't?
Ace jack decreased a ton, but queens went up. It's interesting. Yeah,
queens went up because of the
and aces disappeared.
Yeah.
So aces no longer wants to because it doesn't need protection.
Right, exactly.
And
the best board for aces you can get.
And it's going to just serve like pretty well as a bluff catcher because basically by it jamming, king queen folds, but by it calling, king queen's still in and can bluff. I imagine like kings and queens just benefit from king queen folding. Although kings, that doesn't make sense. Maybe it benefits from ace jack calling. That's probably what it is. All the jack X now calls.
Yeah.
Right. So these hands just benefit a lot from getting called by worse. And when you get jammed on, you're just getting too good of a price to fold. Right. So that's why your call off range doesn't change because of the depth. But you could see like how much more of an error it becomes now to be aggressive with like the ace jacks, for example.
Yeah.
The ace jack suited still plays pretty aggressive with the backdoors because it has bailout equity. Right. But the ace jack of spades now almost never 3-bets. Yeah. So good job. It's not the worst.
Not the worst, but
the wizard approves.
The wizard approves, but in practice, be more mindful of the re-aggression.
Yeah, mindful is a good word. Don't be scared. Just be cautious.
Be mindful.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for us. This was a very long episode. I appreciate you guys sticking it out. Thank you so much to GTO Wizard, as always, for being the sponsor of In the Muck. We'll be back Monday. We got a lot to talk about. I'm sure things are going to pop off over the weekend. There's still some other ancillary topics to the bot farm. There was, a a tweet by Patrick about ignition collusion and some other stuff. So we're going to dig into that a little bit over the weekend as well. Be sure to stay tuned. Sometime next week, we're going to be running a panel to discuss the current state of affairs for online. Would love to have all you guys join in the chat. I'm just basically going to mediate and offer up questions to the panel and defer to their authority. So if you have anything you'd like to see asked, head over to our Twitter page at onlyfriends_pod. Be sure to drop us a note there. We'll see those for sure. Don't forget that we do have the Academy coming up January 15th to the 17th. There's still a few seats available for that. And don't forget that there's a new episode of Poker Out Loud every Monday on solveforwhyacademy.io. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Be sure to like, subscribe, smash the bell so that you're alerted every time we go live, and leave a comment below. Let us know what you think about the current state of affairs on online. We'll be back Monday. Celebrate a Steeler victory.
That's right. Playoffs,
Playoffs
baby.
bound,
Woo!
baby. Let's go. We'll see you all then.
Peace.
Peace.